Oh, we don't need no fancy words. I mean, we need to practice. We need to rehearse.
I'll tell you what we need. We need some paying gigs. We don't need this messing around, first one patio and then another, and that's ridiculous.
Amen.
We don't got no goddamn band! We don't need to fucking practice with it!
You know what I mean? And then you get home and you pee on the strip and you're not your toast. You're like, what the fuck? All I ate was like cheese and meat today.
Yep. So, welcome to the No GD Band podcast. Did we open with carbs?
No, we are gonna.
Okay.
We're not gonna bore our fan base with
We should
our
fade in on carb talk.
ketosis,
Old man keto talk.
No, we're gonna go straight to the news of the day, Henry. And
well, you're missing some
I know
shit on here.
I didn't know if you really wanted to. Well, we should do it. This letter that our president wrote to the president of North Korea.
All I know is that he called off the talks.
Okay, that's Henry. That's fine.
What did he write?
Have you seen the letter?
Did he write it himself?
The word "tremendous" is in there. You tell me.
Trump's letter to...
So here's my initial thoughts. Henry hasn't seen it. Here's my initial thoughts on the letter. I want to see what Henry thinks. First of all, the letter just looks shabby. Like, is that the letterhead now of the president of the United States? It just says Washington at the top. And then it looks to me, Henry, like he used a word template for a business letter.
Man, that is the White House stationery. What are you talking about?
Look at what
seal.
Look,
the White House, Washington.
There's no trim on it. There's no pomp and circumstance. And then look at what he wrote in the above the salutation.
His Excellency Kim Jong-un.
And keep reading.
Chairman of the State Affairs Commission of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, Pyongyang.
So what? The Pyongyang? So the mailman knows where to deliver the fucking thing.
That's
so
probably normal.
They don't do that anymore. Nobody. First of all, White House communiques to other foreign offices.
I don't know this.
Would be done through the South Korean embassy, and it would be done through back channels. It wouldn't actually get on a word processor and write a fucking letter. And then it's so Trump, like it's got Pyongyang and Washington on the letter.
This is also for everybody else.
Like we don't know where the fucking letter came from.
Have you ever seen?
And then at the bottom, Megan has told me now it is not cool in business letters to say sincerely.
Sincerely yours. It's not. We greatly appreciate your time, patience, and effort with respect to our recent negotiations and discussions relative to a summit long sought by both parties, which was scheduled. This is all bullshit.
Keep reading till you get to the word tremendous.
We were informed that the meeting was requested by North Korea, but that to us is totally irrelevant, as I was very much looking forward to being there with you. Sadly, based on the tremendous anger and open hostility, he did use the word tremendous, and open hostility displayed in your most recent statement, I feel it is inappropriate at this time to have this long-planned meeting. He dictated this.
I think he dictated it.
Therefore, please let this letter serve to represent that the Singapore summit, for the good of both parties, but to the detriment of the world, will not take place. You talk about your nuclear capabilities, but ours are so massive and powerful that I pray to God they will never have to be used.
So my first thought, Henry, was if you had shown this letter to the 25-year-old Chris, almost 20 years ago, or more than 20 years ago, his first thought would have been, "Oh shit, they don't have college anymore in the future." What the fuck is this letter?
You talk about your nuclear capabilities, but ours are so massive and powerful. I felt a wonderful dialogue.
The world is getting dumbed down.
Was building up between you and me. Is that even grammatically correct?
Don't even finish it. It's just worse.
And ultimately, it is only dialogue that matters.
So our president is using word to write letters.
He ain't writing this. He dictated that.
Or
Dude,
dictating.
he never touched a typewriter.
But that's what you have. A normal government has diplomats and stuff for. But I guess he's got 4 guys in the federal government at this point.
Did you read what Jason Bateman had to say?
Yeah, I saw. That's another mansplaining. Gets you in trouble.
I'm not even sure. I don't even know if I understand what mansplaining is, except for I try to explain something.
But it's kind of weird.
Or what I think.
It's kind of weird when you're explaining victimness to a female actress who's older than you and been in the game longer than you.
I thought he was trying to explain it to somebody else with her in the room.
Well, he was explaining it kind of to her.
Oh, really? I didn't catch that. That was fun.
I thought his apology was brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, really well worded and thought. I mean, if that was real, that's
You're talking about the Twitter apology?
Yeah, that's what you want to hear. I mean, that sounded great. I think all those people are put in a bad position of having to try to defend Tambor and at the same time not approve of what he did.
Mm-hmm.
It's a rough situation. Henry, do you want to discuss this school shooting? I have nothing to say.
Well, I texted you about it. And I know that you said, well, there's nothing new here. This is the new normal, I do feel like the outrage that we first felt over the last shooting has been numbed, and this Texas incident has lessened in the fever pitch.
It's already
burned it through.
It's already old news. And you know why?
Why?
It didn't kill enough people to even make it news.
And it wasn't an AR-15.
But 10 children.
And so people are conflicted over that.
Well, it's not all 10 children. I guess there were some adults.
Two. There were 8 children, 2 adults from what I understand.
That's not enough to even move the needle past a 48-hour news cycle now. New norm.
We are fucked, man.
Something else that's not on the list that I thought you might want to talk about, because I know you sent me an angry text about it. Are we boycotting the NFL, me and you?
I don't know. I need to talk about it. I'm pretty angry about it, but I also realize that we have a problem beyond just millionaires' First Amendment rights being squashed. We have problems like income, lack of a minimum wage, and health care, and all that. And I think people burn up a lot of mental energy over that issue when we have enormous rancorous things.
Oh no, you're going down
to consider.
You're going down the Chomsky road.
That being said,
you're going down the Chomsky road.
Well, you call it a Chomsky road. Minimize it if you want to.
This is all just a diversion.
Minimize if you want to. But here's my point.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
But the truth is that the NFL only cares about money, and the majority of the people who pay the bills in the NFL are white, rich people who have very definitive feelings about how their employees, namely most of the black guys, should behave and should be and comport themselves.
I appreciate that the New York Jets owner, who obviously must have lost at the meeting, just came out of the meeting and said, I'll pay all the fines for my player.
That was crazy, right? But even some of the coaches have said, I'm not going to,
right.
We'll just pay the fine. But what if the fine's, is the fine $1? Is the fine $10 million?
Well, I thought the interesting part too was this penalty thing that they're going to assign teams penalties, which is kind of like the scene from Full Metal Jacket where the sergeant's not going to make the fat private pay for his sins. He's going to make the whole the whole troop pay.
Right.
So it's like, I thought it's hilarious that these guys think that's going to solve the problem, because what it's going to do is it's going to create a bunch of penalties right off the bat at the beginning of a football game that's just going to make fans more irate.
They did away with that 15-yard thing, right?
I think so.
It's horseshit, right? And what they're doing is they're going to get their asses sued off too.
Well, and it's one of these things where
it's anti-First Amendment.
I hate that it's not if it was being addressed, Henry, as about what those guys were actually protesting about, then I would argue about it.
Uh-huh.
But the whole thing is turned into somehow that these guys are anti the flag and anti the army and anti the troops and anti the United States, and it has nothing to do with that.
The NFL benefits very much from people having hyper patriotic, overly militarized feelings from being there, because the whole game of football mimics warfare.
But don't you think that the white conservative people that feel that that's what the protest's about, really what they really think is, I don't want to face the real issues that these guys are talking about, so I'm going to pretend that it's about the flag and the troop.
Oh, right.
They have to really know,
because they don't want to talk about the issues that are underlying that.
It's even more.
They want to take hyper offense.
It's even
some
more disrespectful.
Personalized offense to their thing about the flag. What I do about the flag, or my feelings about the flag, have fuck all to do with how they feel.
It's even more disrespectful to me because they don't even listen to the people that are protesting about what they're protesting about. Like, it feels like to me there's this disconnect. Like in the 60s when we argued about protests, they were arguing about what the protesters were protesting.
We've been through this. Like I told you, my grandmother said that my grandfather, that many men fought and died so that we could have these rights, the right to protest. And the Supreme Court has defended that you can do that. The Gabaitis case within the Supreme Court, they said you can't be compelled to salute the flag.
But I think the distinction for me here is in the 60s when the kids were protesting the Vietnam War and everything, the other side was arguing with them about what they were protesting about.
Right.
Now we can't even argue about...
Oh, right, because it's a red hair. Yeah.
It's not even about what the actual protest is about.
Yeah. They don't recognize, or you get crickets when you tell them that the knee was adopted as a respectful way to protest while showing respect for the American flag.
Not disrespecting it.
Dropping a knee, believe it or not, is a gesture of respect.
Right.
It just is different from the standard one you're doing because I need to show you something.
All you have to do is ask the person that's doing it.
If you ask me why I'm kneeling, I'm going to tell you what it is.
Not you telling him why. It's the same thing as the people that are anti-Black Lives Matter by saying, well, don't white lives matter too? Ask the Black Lives Matter people what they mean. Don't just assume what they mean. And they'll tell you they don't mean white lives don't matter. But you never ask them what they're talking about. You're so disrespectful of their position that you won't even ask them what their position is.
It's a deliberate misunderstanding for the purpose of evasion, is what you're saying.
Yes. How about the Me Too movement hitting home here in Charlotte? Do you have any thoughts on that?
So I don't know. I will say that I've, being around Charlotte for a while, I've seen his work.
You've been to a couple of his parties
in magazines, and I think I've probably been to a party or two.
We're talking about a photographer here in Charlotte, famous in the art scene here.
Yeah.
Jim McGuire, who used to, in the 90s, he made even into the 2000s. Mm-hmm. And he may still, I just don't go to him anymore, but he threw these big Halloween shindigs at his studio.
Was that one of his places?
Yeah.
He was behind that.
Yeah. We went to a couple of those.
Yeah. That warehouse situation.
Yes. And, from what I had seen go down at those parties, I wasn't shocked at all to find out some of the stuff that he's been accused of in this article.
Let's don't get all puritanical.
No, I'm not. What I'm saying is it didn't shock me after being at Halloween parties where there was lots of people with nothing on but body paint. And lots of touching and rubbing
and all kinds of stuff.
And I'm going to say I touched and rubbed on the dance floor as well, people I didn't know.
Yeah.
I'm not shocked that guy had cameras in the bathrooms and, all kinds of craziness. He also, my only couple interactions with him, he was wide fucking open.
What do you mean?
I mean, if the guy was thinking about pedophilia at the moment you're talking to him, he would just say it. Like he is every bit of the as far left, free thinking, wide open, artistic type dude as you can come across. No, that doesn't condone what he's what he's done. I just thought it was interesting in the Creative Loafing article. It was kind of funny because every time they would ask him about an incident, he would say, I didn't do that, or I don't think so. And then he'd keep talking, which is another thing. He over talks. By the end of the statement, he basically admitted to doing what
everything he did.
So,
cameras in front of the bathroom.
Yeah. And the girl said, that she was sitting in the lobby. She had rented a space.
Yep.
Her shirt was riding up. She was sitting on a couch. She was hot. She was sitting there. All of a sudden, she gets a text. Someone's taking a picture of her sitting there, and with the text message that says something like "sexy." And when he was asked about that, I think he said something about I don't recall doing that, but she was probably looking really sexy or something. Just not getting it. So.
That you can't take pictures of people and send them out to other people, asshole.
Yeah, that you have a professional relationship with. So,
regardless of how edgy you think you are, you're taking advantage of something.
Right. Which reminds me, by the way, fucking Ryan Adams just did a duet with a contestant on The Voice.
I'm sorry, but
yeah,
I thought you just said that Ryan Adams did a song with somebody from The Voice.
It was the finale of The Voice.
Ryan. Not Brian.
Ryan. And the kid is 17 years old who's in the finale, and he wanted to do a Ryan Adams song, and so Ryan Adams came and duetted with him and he lost, which should tell you don't bring Ryan Adams to The Voice, but because nobody who watches The Voice knew the fuck he was. But Ryan Adams doesn't need to be on The Voice either, so it was kind of weird. Let's get to the whiskey segment. Okay.
Oh, show me the way to the next whiskey bar. Oh, don't ask why. No, don't ask why. For we must find the next whiskey bar. Or if we don't find the next whiskey bar, I tell you we must find.
Henry, you came through with the whiskey tonight.
All right, so here's what happened. I went to the liquor store, the ABC store, and they were not able to process my credit card. So I cleaned up my wallet.
Is that because of you or because of...
They didn't... No, sorry. So let me back up. The internet was down. They couldn't run my card.
Okay.
So I turned around and said, shit, what am I
Because that's a different story when you're in the ABC store and your credit card don't work.
Oh, shit. That is a totally different story. That's an I'm broke, Chris. Help me out.
Yeah, that's different.
I suck your dick for $1. Nope. So I cleaned out my wallet and I found $28. So I went and I said, well, whatever I got is got to get me.
Got to get it.
It has to be less than $28. So I looked at the $24 whiskeys and I thought, well, that might actually be more than 28 because it's all I've got.
That's all I got.
I can't pay for that, so I'm going to have to take a step down a little farther.
But I like how in your mind, I know in the back there, you were like, Chris is going to be disappointed if I show up with something in a plastic bottle.
Yeah, if I know, right, I know enough now that if I show up with something in a plastic bottle, he's going to be pissed off. So I tried to look like a pretty distinguished looking label, but yet can keep me in the $20 range. And I found this stuff called Paddy Irish whiskey.
Yes, and we've already sampled it, and I will tell you, folks, it's not bad at all.
I'm really
happy
with that too.
I'm happy with it. Yeah.
Yeah. Triple distilled Irish whiskey. It looks old school.
I think what we're learning is that cheap Irish whiskey is even better than like mid-range American whiskey.
Maybe so.
Paddy.
Matured in oak in Ireland. And it looks like this is the kind of bottle that hasn't changed in, 50 years.
Yep.
It's got the same writing on it. Let's see if they bottle it anywhere in the U.S. Nope. It's aged for a minimum of 3 years, according to the Irish Whiskey Act of 19... There's an Irish Whiskey Act.
Of course there is.
Anyway.
That's probably the biggest thing that they've done since Northern Ireland split off.
So this episode, we're drinking Paddies.
We're drinking Paddies. All right, let's head to it. We've got a very short main section because we got a special potpourri section with some friends of ours band that we went to see we went to listen to their listening party called The Eyebrows. So our main segment's going to be short, but here it is.
Oh, show me the way to the next whiskey bar. Oh, don't ask why. No, don't ask why. For we must find the next whiskey bar. Or if we don't find the next whiskey bar, I tell you we must die.
All right, Henry, we're back. So the main segment's going to be short. This is another crazy idea I had, and you may not. You may be like,
I can
"What
add
the
something to
fuck?"
this. I can add something to this.
So I got this thing when I get these weird ruts sometimes when I'm running, and I got finished running the other afternoon, and I wrote you this long ass text. When I reread the text after I caught my breath, I was like, "Oh, if I send him this, he's gonna think I might have lost my mind."
Fucking crazy. I need to go pick you
But
up.
I had gotten into this. I didn't send it. I'd gotten into this. I'd come up with this theory about culture, pop culture, that I was thinking about in my head, and I got bogged down on this one point, which was I couldn't tell the difference in angst and apathy, and I was like, I need Henry's opinion on what the difference is before I can make my grand theory. But anyway, here's the grand theory. I believe that the world culture, which can we both agree that America since World War II has dominated popular culture?
Sure.
I mean, like most other
Hollywood.
places in the world would say the top 5 movies in the world are the same ones that we would say, and they're all probably American. Like The Godfather is universally
Sure.
So I think that the forward-thinking part of culture ended in the 80s, of the American culture. So like when you look back on, we can study now when Rome died, the fall of the Roman Empire. I think the 80s was the last decade that is the American-driven culture died. And the reason I say that is, and this was my big grand pronouncement, that nostalgia and apathy somewhere in the 90s replaced hope and angst as the drivers of culture. So what I mean by that was when I think about that, I think of The Clash. The Clash were full of angst, but hopeful that they could make a difference. I mean, those guys were so, you would almost call them naive now, thinking that they could change the world. Whereas in the 90s and then up through now, we replace those feelings with apathy and nostalgia. So my current example is the Courtney Barnett phenomenon, which is like this.
Who is she?
So Courtney Barnett is this new hip,
Pop star?
well, more of an indie rock star. You won't really find her on the radio, but it's more of a lethargic, apathetic. It's Kurt Weill. Do you know who Kurt Weill is?
Yes, I do.
It's there's no point in caring. What's cool is not to think you can change the world. It's like, man, the world, I can't even relate to it, and I'm too tired to even deal with it. And on the other end, you've got nostalgia, which is the 90s ate the 70s. So, and I think you remember this, we were trying to make new music. We thought we were making new music as kids, and then all of a sudden grunge came along and ruined what we were into us.
Yeah.
But it was all this regurgitation of the 70s. And then I feel like every generation since then has just picked a decade and tried to eat it.
I think the reason for that is that because we can mirror. Well, there's 2 reasons. One, like today, we're seeing an enormous resurgence in the 80s, like revisiting every old.
Well, what I was
show
hopeful though of that is that the 80s were the last time that we were forward thinking.
I think that I think you could make a case for that, but I think there are other things at work too. I think maybe the reason why we're not forward thinking, because this could be causal, right? What I'm about to postulate could be the cause of why we're not forward thinking. In the 90s and through the aughts and through today, we've been presented with more options for disseminating these things and sharing it with each other and using it than ever. Media has gotten driven into the culture more and more and has become more. Is the word populist? Is that the word I'm looking? Is populist when it's for everybody?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Am I using it right?
Right.
So to the point where it's easier for me to mirror 80s culture to Bijou now than it would have been for your parents to show you their culture because of what it was. I'm saying this,
No,
in a convoluted way,
I get
but-
what you're saying, but I think
But is that the reason? Because we can now make that history that was made in the 80s with the beginning of video, with beginnings of cable TV and new music and all of that exploding into our living room all of a sudden, having that available to us. We're able to consistently kind of regurgitate that because we're of the age to do that. Whereas the old culture can't do it. Now we can, because it ain't just the 80s that we're spitting back at, that we're spitting out.
Well, what I would like to say is, what I would like to think is, we've already regurgitated the 80s. They started,
still are.
They started spitting back decades quicker than there were decades to spit back. It was catching up on them.
Well, maybe, but you've got.
But here's I think a difference that I see that I think you might be missing, that, and maybe I see it wrong. The 90s were the first time that I can remember as a person who felt like he was immersed in the culture, that the thought wasn't, we must do something completely new. It's the 90s. Now we must do something completely new. Instead, we decided
to start
oh my
revisiting
God, the
70s.
70s were fucking cool. My memory of the 70s was, holy shit, the 60s were fucked up.
And
but
let's
man,
not
we're
forget
killing it.
that's the only thing. Do you remember there were bands that were revisiting like other weird shit? Like
Okay, but think of,
remember the who
but here's what you're missing. And
the dancing, what was that?
No.
Remember that? That whole fad?
Oh, the squirrel on that zipper thing.
People like that.
Okay, but think about that, Henry, and think about your experience and my experience in the mid 80s. Nobody that was even doing popular music, even the pop stars, would have said, think about soul music. They weren't trying to do Al Green again. They were trying to do soul music with no drummer.
Right.
They were trying to do, I want to dance with somebody. I want to feel the heat. Like there was no, that wasn't 70s soul at all.
That's something else.
And they didn't want to be the 70s. And
Right.
the 70s had no interest in being the 60s. If you talk to the people in the 70s, they didn't want to be the Lovin' Spoonful anymore. Fuck all that.
Right.
And the 60s had no interest in being rock around the clock, right?
Right.
But the 90s just wanted to be the 70s. And the 2000s just wanted to be the 90s.
Because it was enabled by.
But don't you see that there was a mindset shift? Instead of saying we have to be the future, now we have to be the past.
It's because that was the beginning of the nostalgia
I'm glad I
machine.
said that. I didn't mean to, but I was like, I feel like it's on the right. Now we have to be past.
I think to go along with your point, the 90s was the beginnings of the nostalgia
Yes,
machine.
that's what I'm saying.
And that's what I'm trying to say too, is that I think that the populist shit, you're gonna have to cut this. The media was saturated us so much during that period. It's not like it was in this. Your parents could put a needle on the record player, but they couldn't have shown you a bazillion videos of Glenn Miller.
Right.
They couldn't have shown you all that.
So what you're saying is because there wasn't a dearth of material for me to look at from the past in the 80s, I had to invent new stuff.
No.
Whereas
stuff
in the 90s, there was a bunch of
stuff
shit.
did get invented, but the 90s and onward enabled people to cannibalize what did happen there.
Okay, but here's the...
I'm totally saying it wrong.
No, I see what you're saying. We were enabled to do that, but I think the reason we wanted to do that, and I think it's mine and your generation that did this. I think we're the root cause. I think we fetishized apathy.
Oh, that's on us.
So we started
Yeah.
Generation X. We started
Yep.
what was the movies with Winona Ryder where it was all about
Daria. The apathetic.
There was even a Girl Afraid, or there was some like early Angelina Jolie movie where it was like,
I don't feel anything.
everything is about not feeling anything anymore, as opposed to grunge was all about like not. So I wonder if you see the same distinction. To me, the Clash were hopelessly optimistic that they could change the world. Nirvana didn't want to change the world. Nirvana
They were
wanted to just
tired.
tell you that the world was fucked and we're tired of it. And the cool thing was just to be like, I don't care enough to write a political song.
I don't know.
Whereas
I
the
think-
Clash would have been like, I always felt like Joe Strummer would have been like your angry uncle in the 90s going,
There was a solid fuck you contingent still in the 90s. You know?
but you see what I'm
Punk
saying? That
rock.
was when it started, like Generation X, the like blank that
Yeah.
whole just like, remember this whole thing about we're the first generation that's not going to do better than our parents, and so I feel like the tide turned. And part of it might be things I didn't notice till I started thinking about this, like we stopped thinking about space.
Yeah, I think the Technicolor, and I mean, maybe this is a quote, something you can quote that I say. The Technicolor generation just kind of burned us out on forward thought, right? It was so, bright and futuristic that where do you go after that?
Well-
Once you see Devo, right? Once you see like Kraftwerk and Devo and David Bowie's
I hate
records.
I hate
and all
that. See, that's what I think our mindset is
Where
now.
do we go? Is that what? So it's sort of a dead end.
That's
right?
horrible. That what you're saying. But see, before David Bowie's generation was probably could have taken the tack. After the Beatles, where do I go?
Yeah.
That's a sad statement. And I'll tell you, here's my hope. Here's where I'm being hopeful. The stuff that I've seen in the past 3 weeks, that's all this, what the 80s future looked like, stuff that we've seen. And I watched this movie called Atomic Blonde, which blew me away. The plot's terrible, but
I started watching it, but it's
It is-
highly stylized, right?
it
Pretty
just looks beautiful to
Yeah.
me. It looks like Blade Runner. I just saw Beach House like 2 days later on Jimmy Kimmel, and everybody in Pitchfork magazine is saying, "Oh, she's trying to look like XYZ. She's trying to look like the chick from Blade Runner, the one that was in Splash,
Daryl Hannah
Daryl Hannah. She's
with
trying-
the
She's got the
She did
black.
that?
She's got the raccoon thing on her eyes, and she's wearing like a plastic jacket. It's like
Yeah.
straight out of Blade Runner. What I'm hopeful of is, and we just went and saw a St. Vincent concert, which reminded us of Prince and
Yeah.
the '80s. And I've listened to this band that just put a song out called The Chromatics, which sounds like
Yeah.
the '80s. And so I'm sitting there going, I don't know that this is just nostalgia. I'm wondering if people are starting to try to think about the future again. But the last vision of the future
was that.
was that. So that's the starting point because of what you just said a minute ago. How can we think about anything else as the future? Because that was the last
Yeah.
time we thought about the future.
I'm just kind of spitballing too, but I also know that the men that are in positions, men. Did you notice how I just said that? Because it's probably true, even if I don't want it to be. People who are in positions to make the decisions about what things are made and everything came of age during the 80s. Okay, except for the Duffer brothers who who would never remember the 80s when it happened. They're too young.
Who for my money as a card-carrying '80s person do the best '80s impersonation.
They do the best,
of anybody.
but they don't remember what it was because they weren't alive then.
Right, but I wonder if like that's the new starting jump spot for what the future is going to be. I would hate to think that what you were saying earlier though is true, because there are infinite possibilities. Culture didn't end.
It almost seems that anybody's vision for the future always co-ops someone else's now. And I don't know if that's by necessity because we are all nostalgic or because we're paying the bills or what.
Well, some of the other things I was thinking about that I wanted to bring up that illustrate the point is like it's affected government too. Like I was looking back at all these great different things that our government has done, like these big movements that have happened in history. And we have none of that has happened since the 90s. There's been no Johnson's Great Society. There's been no civil rights movement like in the 60s. There's just been this gridlock. And this new thing, where it started for me when I started my run, was this new Trump fatigue thing that I'm
Suffering?
catching. No, I'm not suffering it. I'm catching it in the wind. When I look on my news feed, it's the whole,
He's
you know
at
what?
it again.
But you know what? Let's just move on. Who cares if he's broken a bunch of federal laws, and it just is what it is. And I've also found this other disturbing notion where I think Mueller has gotten Trump fatigue, because I think I've seen a lot of signs in the wind this last week that Mueller has basically told the Trump team, if you guys will chillax, I'm going to end this thing and not indict Trump. We had Giuliani come out now and say he should go ahead and interview. We had Jared get his security clearance, which means you're cool, dude. It's okay. We had Trump actually make a statement where he's praising Ron Rosenstein. I think they've been told, if you guys will fucking back off and chill, we're just going to quietly end this thing and take down Manafort. And you know, I think that's almost Mueller Trump fatigue, where he's just like, this son of a bitch is just getting away with everything. I can't fucking fight it anymore.
I can't indict him.
All right, maybe I could, but what is it worth it anymore? Let's just. And I think our side is just the point of like,
Let's just suffer down and knuckle down for the next 6 to 8 months.
no, and I don't even think we're
For
going
the
to vote. I
midterms.
think it's worse than that. I don't even think we're going to turn out in the midterms. I think it's just, it's a creepy, like, cultural thing to me. It's not just about that. It's a cultural malaise that started in the 90s.
With the rise of the fetishization of apathy.
And then nostalgia. You know, we're so scared of how terrible things are. I want to curl up in a ball and remember the 80s. Right. I want to curl up in a ball and remember the 70s.
Westerberg's new band's called the I Don't Cares, I think.
Yeah. I mean,
right.
Yeah. And I mean, and look at younger people. I look at some of these younger rap stars who have tattoos all over their face, and they're 16 to 18 years old, and they're dying of overdoses and stuff. And like, their whole message is just like, I don't have a message. I'm just like living from today until the little schoolie or something. He's got tattoos all over his face, and he dies of a,
See, you're
addiction.
having the same trouble that I am probably with envisioning an actual movement now. It's too easy to splinter this off and diffuse it with our social media, right?
Either there's going to be a revival, and I'm hoping it's starting to sprout, or our culture, which is American culture, is actually dying. And what's going to happen is it's going to be China or some other place creates the new culture. And like Britain did before World War II, they just get to watch us take the mantle. And now we get to watch China or somebody else take the mantle. I truly think with the Trump election on a political scale, we are pulling the plug on being the world leader on everything, because he has no interest in that. It's isolationism. Mm-hmm. And I think that mantle is going to be taken up by China. But I think he's the best thing that ever happened to China. But that's fine. I love how we always have this attitude of like, that's evil because America always has to be first. Maybe we run our course. You know what I mean? Me and you talk about. I
don't have that opinion.
How capitalism is horrible. Like, maybe we have run our course.
Dude, I believe that we're witnessing late stage capitalism. I don't think I give us another 15, 20 years.
So maybe this is just maybe this is just our culture is at its end, and this is the way.
Well, it's just and it may morph into something else more interesting. Maybe somebody else will have something better. We don't have to be on top. We don't have to be the cultural driver.
Do you think this is a fun thing to listen to while you're driving to work in the morning?
While you're doing your job at your cubicle with your...
This is just a theory I had running, and I hope...
80s nostalgia is a rabbit hole. Nostalgia rabbit hole.
I've just seen it pop up a lot lately, and I was hoping it popped up.
It's a little bit of a cultural mirror, but that's it.
I hope it popped up because that was the last time the future looked like the future. And maybe people are trying to forward think again. I'm hopeful Elon Musk is like driving us to the
next thing.
But maybe not.
What does the future look like to you, Chris? Is this an unfair question to ask you in the midst of...
because I'll tell you another thing that I've noticed, and I'm a big sci-fi buff. I'm so sick of, I have to hunt out science fiction that I'm interested in because almost 90% of science fiction now is post-apocalyptic dystopian fiction. It's basically the future is dead.
Bleak or dead.
It's not Arthur C. Clarke, 2001, A Space Odyssey, where humans become gods. It's get ready for no water.
Do you watch any of the science fiction shows?
I love The Expanse, which just got canceled, but Amazon just picked it up. It's the best. If you were a Battlestar Galactica fan, I can't say enough.
I'll get it.
How
They're
awesome
going to reboot
The
that.
Expanse
Did
is,
you hear
which
about
are the
it?
books that we use for our podcast stand every week. That is The Expanse.
Battlestar Galactica?
I didn't hear something happening with it.
They're going to reboot it again.
Man, I love that show. I thought it was great.
I have heard, a guy at work told me that it is hands down probably the best science fiction television show ever put on TV. But that it hasn't exactly aged great.
Yes, I went back and revisited it, and what I will say is
right?
I think The Expanse is actually better.
Yeah.
And it's
Is that guy Ronald Moore involved with it?
not with The Expanse, but he was with Battlestar Galactica. Had a 2-season kind of where it got a little soapy. Got a little soap. That's the problem. It tried to draw in a larger audience and got a little. What do they call those, Henry? Now the kids call those relationships they want to see on It got a little shippy. I'm glad you remember that. I can't remember that.
Got a little shippy.
It started shipping a lot. You know what I mean? And other than that, though, it was great. The first couple seasons were great, and the last season was great. But
there's just too much good TV out there, man. But, you talk about, like, are we forward thinking? Good Lord. It's the golden age of forward TV these days.
yeah, there's a lot of great TV out there, and I can't keep up with it all. There's a show that I really I love, but I can't get back to, which was called Transparent on, I believe it was on Hulu or Amazon.
Amazon?
It's the one Jeffrey
Tambor?
Tambor got in trouble for.
Is it back?
Well, they're going to do one more season without him.
Yeah.
But I'm a season behind. I didn't see the last season of it.
Oh,
so
yeah, I watched all that.
I love that show, and I can't get into it. I never finished Altered Carbon because I just couldn't get back to it.
I didn't get back to it either.
I really liked that. There was a show. There's one of those true crime shows I got lulled into on Netflix called Evil Genius.
Oh my God, dude!
It's been really good, but
Have you finished it?
not yet.
Shit!
Don't tell me the end.
God damn it! We got to talk about that.
Because there's another show that's on AMC that I think is one of the most brilliant shows I've ever seen.
What's
called
that?
The Terror.
I haven't seen that.
Oh, dude, The
the
Terror
hell?
is unbelievably good. Here's what was so funny about The Terror.
What?
They put it on when I was having my crisis of conscience with The Walking Dead. They led into the first episode of The Terror off of The Walking Dead season finale. It was such a juxtaposition of dog shit versus amazing television that it sold me on fuck The Walking Dead.
This
for the
thing's
rest of
got
my
a
life.
92%
The
on Rotten
Terror
Tomatoes.
is amazing. And here's the best part, Henry. It is a one season only show. They're not trying to fucking bring it back. It was a one season special arc.
One and done, huh?
And it's brilliant. It is great.
A horror show,
It's great.
but it's good.
It is great.
All right. I got one more point that occurred to me before we got on that tangent. Do other movements, like BLM, for example,
What's BLM?
Black Lives Matter?
I didn't know that they already like anachronized.
I thought so.
Yeah, you're up on shit more than I am.
Maybe.
Okay, BLM. That
Are
sounds like
they-
a bowel movement.
It sounds bad, right? But
I had a bad BLM last.
what, do they ever stand to have the same, to gain the same traction as some of these other movements that we talked about, the Great Society, the Civil Rights Movement?
I don't think so.
Gay activists. Or
I
any
thought
of that?
about that too with another movement. Tell me about this. What happened to? I can't remember the ones that were going to camp out at the stock on Wall Street until the 99.
Yeah, it kind of evaporated, right?
What was that called?
The 99% or something like that.
Or the others, or whatever they call.
That is so sad. We can't remember. We've got so fucking fatigued. Shit has happened left and right on us so much we can't even remember those guys.
Yeah, and so I feel the same way about BLM. Maybe they can't sustain. Is it because of this news cycle thing, you think? The 24-hour news cycle just kills everything in its path?
Everything, the good and the bad. I mean, it doesn't have the relevance. And, one could make the case that it shouldn't, and that we really shouldn't busy ourselves with the news business from across the continent. That we should pay more attention to local stuff. I mean, it shows that, like, we're ignorant of our own local politics because we're looking outside so fucking much and being affected by,
Well, another
that stuff all the
another
time.
show I was watching recently that I think is brilliant that you should watch, called Legion. And the last episode I watched was making the point that it's delusional because we've become watching this thing in front of us instead of watching the real world, which is our little screen.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not the real world. What's in your little screen is not the real world. The real world is what is in front of your fucking face. And we've chose to be delusional. And the cool thing on the show was the girl was walking around with her phone and she saw a chicken in front of her. And she went to take a picture of it, and on the phone it was a duck. And she took the picture, and her friend goes, "That's not a duck, that's a chicken." And she was like, "Fuck you, it's a duck, and you're fat." And it was this whole thing about the reason these people troll each other and stuff is because you're not even real anymore. We become so narcissistic with these devices. You're not even real except as how you react to me. That's why these internet trolls can tell people, like famous women they don't even know, who say, the Me Too movement is important or whatever, and someone will comment on their Twitter, not if you're a fat fucking, not if you're fat fucking chicken face like you, some dumb shit, because they're not a real person to them. They're just a thing that they interact with on their phone. We're gonna go to our potpourri section. What do we do tonight, Henry?
Tonight, what are you talking about? Like, let me set it up.
Yeah, set it up. Let's set it up.
We went to a listening party for our friend Jay Garrigan, who has a new band called The Eyebrows, and we listened to their record, and we had a great conversation with both Jay and Sean Lynch, his brother-in-arms, who on this record plays the drums, as well as their new bass player, Darren
Gray. Kind of a local Charlotte. He's been in bands forever.
Yeah, he has been in bands forever.
He's been kind of like one of Hope Nichols' side people since she was in Fetch and Bone. He wasn't in Fetch and Bones. Everything she's done kind of since then.
So it was really a nice, unexpected surprise to get to talk to him briefly about, about what he's doing now, and to get some insight from both Jay and Sean about the process of doing the record and some, other fun stuff that we were talking about in the process. So we're going to put that together and have it on the pod right now.
All right, here it is.
They're all happy mistakes.
By the way, before we get too far,
Yeah.
who are you and what do you do?
Who am I and what do I do?
Name, rank, and serial number.
My name is Jay Garrigan.
Yeah.
As far as what I do with what I think we're concerned about, I am both of your friends, I hope. We've known each other for a long time, so that's first and foremost. As far as the music goes on, I do write the music. I come up with a lot of the parts, and then I try to lead a band.
And you sing and play guitar?
I sing and play guitar, and
Right now?
I sing, play guitar. I dabble in other instruments, but actually I dabble in all of them.
Right.
I just happen to do guitar more.
For the most part, right?
Yeah.
So how long has this record been fomenting? Fomenting? Is that a good word before?
What's a good
Fomenting?
word? Yeah.
How long has this been fermenting?
No, I like fomenting.
You
I don't
know,
even know. I think that's a misuse of the word.
I gotta be honest. I don't know, but it might even be at the 5-year mark.
Really?
Some of these songs, because like Red Dress, I used to play when Sean and I had a band called Garrigan, which was it was kind of that band was to me kind of a, not the people in the band, but the reason for the band was kind of a mistake. But started that band, that song there, and just some songs are fairly newish when they were new like a week or two before we recorded it, but some of them are really old because I constantly record like this song. There's at least 4 or 5 versions that I have from my home studio because I just wanted to keep seeing, not can I do it better, but what could be cooler, and can I take it out of, if I played on different instruments, if I added analog delay on the guitar, if I made it more 50s sounding, what if I had some talky parts like Frank Blackie parts on it,
We were talking with Sean a minute ago about the benefits of a studio versus, like, you've been around the game long enough to where you could probably engineer and do your own record yourself. You could do one of those bedroom records, and it would probably sound really good and great. What are the advantages of going to a studio now versus staying and doing the thing that everybody seems to be doing?
Well,
with the laptop.
I mean, when I record, my purpose really isn't to put something out that people will enjoy. It's to explore what I can do with what I got. And I don't, I have very limited microphones. I don't really have any outboard gear. And I think the difference is it's two purposes, really. The reason why I think you should go into a studio is because, for example, Mitch was setting up some mics, and I was like, don't you think you should use like a such and such mic on the drums? And he said, well, actually, I have the microphones. Actually, the microphones you're talking about are based on the microphones I have. Right. And then I was quiet, Right. And I was like, well, why don't you have any outboard EQs? He's like, because I have a really good board. The same. By the way, the board that did this was the same board that did Never Ending Story and Das Boot.
Yeah.
Wow.
But to answer your question, go ahead.
You have the vernacular to be able to describe what you want to somebody like Mitch, right? Who would say, well, the microphone you want is based on this. I'm not sure that same vocabulary or whatever would translate to somebody who came up in the laptop era.
Oh, they won't know.
Who's trying to do that.
But
I
think,
he wouldn't be able to go and explain to Mitch, hey.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, it's the performance, right? I mean, if you touch someone through what you do, and fidelity doesn't really equate something good. I mean, I think we're all fans of Guided by Voices.
Sure,
right?
yeah.
Actually, like the Vampire and Ties album, that to me is actually a little hard to listen to, and I think I cried after I listened to it because I was like, the songs are so good. Why are they shittily record these songs? But then B1000, Alien Lanes, and even the mid-fi stuff I really like, and it's proof that it's really about the performance, and I think it doesn't mean you have to be overwrought with emotion. It just means it's got to strike a nerve with somebody, and hopefully it's not just the person creating it, because that's the worst kind of music, right? It's like, I'm feeling it, guys, I'm feeling it. Everyone's like, nope, not feeling that. But for this record, I wanted to, one time in my life, try to do everything the way I think, because I thought the songs were worth a shot. I thought Mitch Easter was the guy, just because the regional connections he and I have had over the years, and he's a master. He's probably one of the last of the true music engineers. Not the last, but one of the last around these parts. I mean, a lot of people know how to push buttons and maybe know how to tweak stuff and place microphones, but he knows the science behind it. It's really refreshing to just hang out with him, because you really can't have a musical conversation with most people the way you can with Mitch.
This is a different thing for you.
The recording?
This kind of song.
I think.
Am I right?
Actually, I write maybe several types of songs, and there's I call it the stupid farty songs.
Oh yeah.
This is one of those stupid farty songs.
But have you layered your vocals as much as in other records have you done with this one? Because I feel like you've got several different I'm not saying you're Freddie Mercury and out.
Oh no, I'm not by any stretch.
But I'm saying it seems like you have more vocals layered on them than maybe you have in the past.
Yeah. There's a few. I think it's more Mitch's approach, because I actually asked him about that. And he goes, well, I think vocals should sound a little electronic and processed. That's why you're in the studio. And I was like, can't argue with that. He's mixing it. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
well, I wouldn't say it sounds electronic. I just say it sounds like you got more than one of you.
Yeah.
Like I've heard you on your other records, and it's your voice, right?
Yeah.
And
Well, I
you
think,
sing.
well, to answer your question. So Sean and I, like with Pop Rocket, it was all, one instrument, no overdubs, we don't want like Robot J.
Yeah.
There's a few like on Red Dress. There's a like you can hear me sing a couple of the parts.
Yeah.
But now that Darren's joined the band, he can sing too. So we've got a little
You went through some
3-part action.
lineups, right, before you settled.
Well, if you think about it, Sean and I have been playing together for 18 years, and I think we've been through 10 bass players, 3 guitarists, and 2 keyboardists that I can remember. And I don't think that counts people like one-off stuff that filled in or whatever. But Sean and I have also played in a number of bands. Like we both played in Temperance League. We've both done Fool's Brigade. We've done a couple other like one-off things. Henry and Chris, I've never figured out how to make a living doing this.
Yeah.
And this record to me is I'm doing things differently. It's like do things with the right producer, the right mastering engineer. We're going to start. I don't want to name the name of the company, but we're pulling digital for 3 months because they want to promote us for 3 months. But they've done a lot of huge indie artists, and who the fuck knows?
Is that like a goal that you have for it, or like are you just open-ended about?
I
what
would
you wanna
just
do?
like to have more reach because I don't want to put out a record and then sell it to all my friends,
Yeah, I know.
and then the occasional like strange person who got
the forever like problem that everybody has is they don't want to do a record and sell it to all their friends.
Well,
That's absolutely.
Paul Wesselberg said, you're not playing rock and roll if you're playing for your friends. And that's kind of one of my goals is to not play for my friends.
You live where it's cold and the fish don't like the water swimming in your sea. Because the sun will kill us all. Because the sun will kill us all. Land of born and bred, one love's dread. Your twinkling eye, is this the end when I leave? Because the sun will kill us all. Because the sun will kill us all. Because the sun will kill us all. Just wanna wake up with you. Spend the rest of my life with you. Just wanna wake up with you. Spend the rest of my life with you. Because the sun will kill us all. Because the sun will kill us all. Just wanna wake up with you. Spend the rest of my life with you. Just wanna wake up.
No, me and Jay have been playing together since 2000, Pop Rocket and whatever else has happened. So
Yeah, I think I told Sean this last week. We were at the same place. That was my first. I knew him as a drummer in Pop Rocket, so I was like, I didn't even know he played guitar or anything else. I was just like, oh,
I think that's where I first saw you too.
But Jay wasn't doing anything of his own for a while, and because we were both at Temper Sleep for a few years,
Right.
and then Jay just was like, he just wanted to he got the itch to do something, start doing his own songs again, start writing new songs.
Right.
So we don't do any pop rocket songs. Maybe except for maybe one song on this record, all the songs are only a couple years old, kind of thing. So he's always writing. So
No temptation to revisit that stuff.
every once in a while, but I guess if we're gonna play one of these beer joint gigs, we gotta play for 3 sets. We might start learning some old tunes. Jay's got a ton of songs, but just the three of us don't know them all. I mean, I know them, but they're in my brain somewhere. But as far as Teacher and Darren, our bass player, the old tracks, we haven't done that yet, but we'll probably do that eventually. But
I don't know that I've heard Jay layer his vocals like I have on this one. Would you think? Do you agree with me with that? Listening to it right here, right now.
Yeah.
Maybe the track before this or the one before that.
yeah,
It sounds like he's got a lot more
he's got he did more
vocal tracks.
on the record. He did, yeah. And I do some of it, but some of it he was doing a bunch himself. Because some of these songs when he demos them at home, he kind of goes crazy and puts all kind of stuff on them.
Yeah, yeah.
And I have to read them back. It's listen, we gotta try to do it kind of if we can make sure we can do this live,
Right.
I mean, I've always sang backups on whatever we've done before, but we can't do all of them,
Yeah.
But I do as much as I can, and then Darren started singing some more too.
It sounds like the guitars have a lot more kind of. I don't know what that. Do they just mic guitars better than they used to, or what?
Well, Mitch sure does. I mean, that's the thing. And there's not
it's
a
not
bunch.
this twee speaker thing going on. It fills up the room.
Right, and there's not 10 guitars going on. It's really maybe 2 guitars at the most. Sometimes, we try not to overdub a whole bunch of stuff on this record. I mean, there's keys on it, and there's a couple guitars here and there, but it's not over the top. I don't think. But you're right. He does vocal stuff. Vocally, he's doing more layering than we have.
Just seems like the guitars are way more present than maybe the stuff from back in the day with pop rocket or other kind of stuff like that.
But also because we didn't record our stuff in the match either.
Yeah.
Back then,
And we just had the best studio that we could get, and the best experience we had with them. So it was easy to it just sounded like it should automatically. It wasn't if we would have recorded this stuff ourselves, we would have taken months of tweaking. Cause we didn't know we don't. I think that's the whole thing about why studios have come back around, because for a while studios were on the brink of going out of business because everybody's had the computer technology and they can record something on their phone or their laptop. And it's what do I need to go to the studio for? I can do it all myself. And they realize, well, that's because it sounds like shit if I do it myself, because I don't know what I'm doing. Musicians should play music, and they should have studios to record you and make you sound awesome. Right. You can't do it all. And a lot of bands have to do a bunch, because they're self-contained. They have to try to promote themselves and try to manage themselves.
It's doing both dilutes you a lot.
It dilutes it a lot, for sure. Yeah. So if you could just at least let go of the recording part and just play and try to play as best you can, and let somebody who knows what they're doing record you the best they can, it sounds so much better.
Don't want to take all your time.
You're fine.
We are sort of a whiskey podcast, so do you have a favorite whiskey or bourbon?
I have a few.
Make some suggestions.
I think I told you this last time we were hanging out. My new favorite is this Irish whiskey called West Cork. West Cork. It's from.
It's going on the list.
They have it. They have it at an ABC store. They have it at Workman's Friends. My buddy Niall, the bartender at the Workman's Friend, he's from Cork, and he brought it to the shop, and he suggested one night, and it's very, very good. It's just I don't mind peaty and smoky, and it's a good mix of. It's very lightly peaty, but it's really smooth. It's delicious. I had one before I got in the lift to come over here tonight. Right. But yeah, West Cork is my new favorite. But Bullet was a favorite for a long time. But yeah, any Irish whiskeys usually go. Not Jameson now. I was Powers. That's good. That's a new thing that I've tried recently. I like a lot. Powers is a little bit more smoky than your wife likes, but I like it. And but scotches, Lafroig or Talisker,
We haven't done enough episodes to hit Scotch yet, but
Okay.
once we do, yeah.
All right.
I've got a book of 1,000 whiskeys, so I think we're okay for a while.
Yeah, we are.
All right. Well, yeah. Let me know. I'll come talk about that if you want.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
I'd
sure.
like that.
As long as we're having one while we're talking.
Right. Well,
Absolutely.
that's the way we normally do it. So thanks, Sean.
Sean, thanks for
Thanks, Chris.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Henry.
What's up, you bad mother? Gonna slap you on the hand. Think you're big trick, but you're not a good man. The skies grow dark with your evil plan. Stupid got a head full of broken glass and rocks. Use the city worker and the local pissed off cops. The skies grow dark when you circle the block. Creepy mother effing peeping Tom. I caught you looking at my girl. Nothing's gonna stop you till you piss off the weight of the world. It comes down hard. It comes down hard. Cause every day you wake up saying, I'm gonna win. Gonna pull a fast one on poor old Mrs. Finn. She just had a stroke, but she never learned to swim. You just cost about $500. Cause she's got a car that's up on blocks. Nothing's gonna stop you till you piss off the weight of the world. It comes down hard. It comes down hard. It comes down. It comes
So Darren is like a local Charlotte music legend. You've been in. Tell all the bands that you've been in.
That I've been in.
Yeah, in Charlotte or anywhere. I mean,
There's been a lot, but Charlotte.
get the big ones, the big rundown.
The Gentleman Suitors, which is the first one that I started playing when I first moved here. From Smith, I was in a band called Smithwick Machine from Alabama. They used to tour through here.
When did you start playing? Did you start playing bass or drum?
I've been a drummer since a kid.
Okay.
So when I ended up moving here, I was playing drums in some bands. And then about 1999, Snagglepuss was working on their first album, and Travis, the original bass player, moved to New York halfway through. And I was at Fat City one night.
Oh, yeah. We were in that place.
Yeah, I was there. And
I thought you were the original guy. I didn't know
no,
that.
well, I mean, I played on more than half the album or more. I don't remember. 14 songs.
Right.
I played on like 7 or 8 of them. But so I jumped right in there. I never played bass before. I was just at Fat City, and Hope was like, I knew her from when Sugar Smack toured and Smithwick Machine, my old band. We opened up for them on some tours, and she's like, "You're gonna be our new bass player." I said, well, "I don't have a bass or anything." She said, "Get a bass. We practice on Tuesday night." I said, "Okay." But then I go home like, "Oh my God, where am I gonna get a bass?"
Right.
Well, I mean, what if I just? I couldn't say no. You can't say no to Hope anyway. So luckily, I was like, I don't know where to get a bass, and I ran into Missy Bizzaro.
Oh, yeah.
And she's like, I've got this bass in my closet. it's been there since I was in college, and it was the bass player for Brickbat's bass.
Wow.
And which I didn't know about Brickbat then. But anyway, I said, does it have like? I just off the top of my head said, does it look like it has two little horns on it like that? She said, yeah, as a matter of fact, it does. I said, sweet, I love those. And so she sold me a bass. I went to practice on Tuesday. They showed me how to play bass, sort of, and I've been playing bass a lot ever since.
Right. So how long have you been doing eyebrows with these guys?
Oh, well.
Are you brand new or?
I'm brand spanking new.
Okay.
That's John plays on the album.
Right.
But I played. I guess we practiced about 4 weeks or something, and we played a little gig at Birdsong last week, which I was glad to get that over with because I don't know why, man. I just destroyed the first song. It's like.
Oh.
Forgot to change, kind of thing. You could never, you know how it is. You never can get back on that train.
Yeah,
when that thing passes you by, you're not getting back on. You know what I'm saying? So I just flubbed that up so bad, and I felt so horrible. But if you're gonna do it, do that at a brew pub because free beer and stuff like that. But,
I know. I remember when we were doing the volunteer stuff when Bruce was doing those benefits.
Yeah.
Anytime I played with Sean, he knows all of those covers so well.
Yeah, he knows
every part. Like if you messed up a note, I'd always look over and Sean would be like,
"No."
So I'm imagining at the brew pub it was pretty bad news. Like the same way.
No, he was like, it was funny because there wasn't that many people there, and then it started raining. Everyone ran, and but after. You know how it is.
Yeah, oh yeah.
You know, I just, oh man, but I was glad to get that past me, man. I drank all the free beer they would give me.
Right.
I went home and I ran the set twice or something. Just
Right.
punished myself or whatever. But I felt good about it now, but it was like, so stupid.
We don't need no fancy words. I mean, we need to practice. We need to rehearse.
I'll tell you what we need. We need some paying gigs. We don't need this messing around, first one patio and then another, and that's ridiculous.